choking plumes. Fires lit by protesting opposition supporters mixed with tear gas as police dispersed the crowds. This was supposed to be a prayer rally at the Jacaranda grounds in Nairobi. Instead, yet more running battles between police and protesters. This is as close as we can get to the Jacaranda grounds. Since early Tuesday morning, the police and opposition protesters have been clashing here.
Uhuru promised to unite Kenyans. He should have done that before being sworn in. We want fresh elections.
What we want to tell the government of Kenya, that we are going, if there is no Raila, there is no Uhuru. Kenya will be divided.
Opposition supporters regrouped a few times, blocking roads, making it impossible for motorists to pass. And as his supporters clashed with police, finally, word from their leader, Raila Odinga. But it's not a message of unity.
We do not recognize the last elections carried out in October. They are fake. Our first step is to declare that Uhuru Kenyatta is not the president of Kenya.
Another defiant message from the opposition leader. He's refusing to recognize Uhuru Kenyatta's presidency. But many Kenyans say it's time he does to end the unrest. Soni Methu, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Let's get some analysis on Kenya's political situation from Dr. Njoki Ngume. She is a political commentator joining us live here in our Nairobi studios. Dr. Ngume, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so let's talk about today, Uhuru Kenyatta finally assuming office for his final term and he outlining his vision for this country. Do you think he struck the right note and what stood out for you?
I think several things stood out for me. One is the president's re-centralizing the Kenyan in Kenya's democratic journey. We've had a lot of conversations recently about the back and forth between the two bulls, Fahali Wawili as they say it. And now the president is very eager for the Kenyan to come back into the narrative. He's saying the dignity of the citizen. He wants for us to just kind of think about who the Kenyan is and why. He even reflected that in many ways we have used politics as an end instead of a means to an end. That was very important for me in the speech. The second thing was his vision for his final term, and he was very adamant in calling it his final term constitutionally as well. The president talked about universal healthcare. He talked about revitalizing the agricultural sector. He talked about revitalizing industry. He talked about a plan for homes that's quite ambitious. All of these things are very ambitious. He also talked about what he called fiscal accountability and discipline. He didn't use the word corruption even once, but he wants people to know that he's going to be a lot tighter in as far as the public monies are concerned. And I mean, what we have to do is wait and see what happens in as far as that. And the final thing was with regards to, again, asking people to reach out across political divides, starting with himself and following rule of law. Again, he made two interesting diplomatic moves. One was telling the citizens of the East African community without the condition of reciprocity, that they are free to come and work and live, buy land, marry in Kenya, just like citizens subject to the laws of this land. And again, he said that Africans from across the continent are able to come into Kenya just getting a visa at entry without all the shenanigans that they used to have to go through before. I think those are very important things and that they're very necessary. The two things that he said in as far as the Kenyan citizen are concerned, which were very heart-based, and I felt that they were very important. He told Kenyans, one, that they have to love and protect their neighbors. And he also made reference to the children of Kenya, saying that they were his inspiration. And he talked about raising honest and productive children. I thought that was very touching.
Right. So then, Ironically, contrasting that, we also heard from the head of the opposition, Raila Odinga, saying that in 2 weeks' time, he will also be sworn in as the president of Kenya. And the question is, what impact is this likely to have on the political landscape of this country?
I think, first of all, we need to just kind of zoom out. I don't think it's ironic at all. The opposition have a very definite stand in as far as whether they agree with what's going on or not. It's not a surprise to me that this is the move that they would make. Again, several oppositions across the continent have done this, and so this is not a foreign thing. Again, we have to zoom out on the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. He has several things that he has to consider doing. The first of which is that we've only been seeing him. We don't see his coalition as strongly, and so we have to ask ourselves, where are the NASA we know? The second thing is, as far as the National Resistance Movement, even for those who have questioned the name as being very similar to the ruling party next door. But in as far as the National Resistance Movement, what is their ultimate aim? They have talked about secession. We need to see where this conversation is going to go. Are they going to lead us in a conversation about the kind of very, and the president has talked now, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta has talked about the need to leave certain things behind and embrace the future. I don't think some of these things are going to be very easy to leave, especially the history of inequalities that we've seen. But when we look at the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, he does have to negotiate some of these conversations that he began and must continue. Again, ODM and the NASA coalition do have a very special place in the current government, and they're going to have to take the lead where it is that they can take the lead and hold the majority party to task. And so they have to figure out all of these things at the same time. So in as far as the context of all of these things, I'm not entirely sure that the inauguration is where we should be focusing. NASA are going to be very busy doing very many things over the next 5 years. Maybe the inauguration is key to all of these things happening. I don't think so, because there's so much more that they're going to have to be doing to cement their place as the opposition.
Well, I guess listening to that inauguration speech, both from the president and his deputy, there was the talk of unity, unifying the country and leaving all the hate behind. And this is something that has really dominated this election season for the last 2 years now. But what is it the country needs to do to move forward, to be united moving forward?
I think that's I don't think that's an easy question. First of all, in as far as moving forward and leaving hate behind, we need to realize that there were reasons that the hate was had. And it's not a thing that people can just leave. All of us have been party to conversations, both online and offline, that have been very difficult. People have said difficult things. Families have said difficult things. Even families that have prior lived in peace and have married across tribes have made things very difficult for some of their members. And so I don't think these are things that we leave easily. I think the call to love and protect a neighbor is something that is actionable. We know what it means to feel loved. We know what it means to feel protected. But in as far as making people feel secure again, we're going to need to have more conversations around cementing our economic position. There's very many businesses that have been shaky. Many people have lost their jobs. There's very much uncertainty. And so where are you going to get the energy to love your neighbor and protect them when you're just wondering how you're going to eat the next day? You're wondering what your plan for the next month's rent is going to be. So in as far as some of these things are concerned, I don't think they're going to be easy. Again, we've been a little touch and go in as far as the bits of the Constitution that we choose to focus on and the bits that we don't. The president talked at length about constitutionality in his inaugural speech and rule of law. And one of the things that I always say is that we have been ignoring Article 81, which tells us that our 12th parliament is unconstitutional. We don't follow the 2/3 gender rule. And so what conversation are we going to have to put women, who are 52% of our population, in the place where they're supposed to be? We cannot play fast and loose. The Council of Governors are currently in court trying to get into county governments things that are under the control of the national government, and they're citing constitutionality. So in as far as electoral bodies not meeting the 2/3 gender rule proviso, we're going to need to be honest about the fact that that is also deeply unconstitutional. So let's put our money where our mouths are. If we say constitution, let's be constitution from the beginning to the end, even when it's inconvenient.
All right, we shall leave it there for now. It's a pleasure having you in our studio tonight. Thank you for coming.